Ladies and gentlemen, greetings citizens all over the world. I want to do a proper introduction in this video for a reason. And I pray with all my heart and soul that every single human being out there will take the time to listen to this video. I think you'd be quite surprised with the information I'm going to give you. Okay? It'll make a lot of sense to you and you relate to this a lot. So, I just want to open up a few remarks before we start this. And my name is originally Kim Sobel Christensen. I'm under Kim Lakeford. You'll find my private page and you can message me on Messenger. Kim Lakeford, L-A-K-E-F-O-R-T. Lakeford's the middle name for Sobel, Kim Sobel Christensen. When you translate Sobel in Danish to English, it's Lakeford. So I just changed it to English. But it's my original name. And I was born on the 27th September 1960 in Denmark. And I had quite an extraordinary life. I moved to Australia in 1970 and was brought up in Australia. I lived in Australia for about 47 years. Now, I was put down a certain path in my life for a reason. I want you to consider that Christ, okay, first of all, I never read the Bible and I never went to church in my life. Not ever. I was never that way inclined, but I wasn't a disbeliever. I was always open-minded. Very, very open-minded to anything. I walked through my life with a lot of rejection. My parents rejected me. I was a black sheep in the family. I ended up leaving school at about 12 years old. I lived in the streets. I got on drugs. I became a junkie. And I flatlined with a drug overdose at 18 years old. And then I fought tooth and nail to get off drugs. And a car accident actually saved me in 1981. It saved me. It was a horrible car accident, but it put me in shock for 3 weeks and saved me from the drugs that I was dying from, literally. I went from 74 kilos to 51 and I already flatlined once. I had a putrid habit. But I got out of it and I had many extraordinary events in my life. And my life took a very big turn at this point. Okay, I got married and had 2 kids. I started buying and selling the most famous cars in Australia. Buying and selling cars and made a living in that. I had an extraordinary turn of events in my life. Became #1 in the underground world. And we can see good and evil here. We can take it for what it is. I know my bad, but I also know my good. And my good outweighs the bad by a long shot. And I'm not trying to put tickets on myself, I'm just saying how it really is. The end results will amaze you. I developed a drug, the most powerful truth serum in the world, the most powerful love drug, most powerful enlightenment drug, superhuman abilities. Okay? And when I went through the underground world with these drugs, they were using the military for MK, MBK, Ultra and all that sort of stuff. I was working right next to the 2 top scientists from NASA in the underground world. And we took over the 7 most powerful networks in Australia. I became #1 most wanted. And we developed the most powerful enlightenment drug in the world on every testing center. It caused the Royal Commission, the biggest think tank in the world, after the Federal Police and the National Commerce Authority, we had us under surveillance for 3.5 years solid. They couldn't catch me. I was 10 times more advanced than them. And they couldn't work out how. Okay, they couldn't work out how come I was so much more advanced than them. Well, when you play with drugs, you're playing with truth serums. Okay, that's been declared by CIA. That opens up your mind to different perceptions, different parallels. Okay, multiple perceptions, dimensional thinking, remote viewing, mental telepathy, ESP. Okay, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu, predicting the future, preventing what's going to happen. And that's spirituality. Okay, that's something we embed in our DNA with genetic memory. Okay, a genetic process that's proven with DNA studies done. DNA is the book of life. This led to the most unbelievable outcome you could have imagined. And that's what the whole point is here. It's not about my life. It's not about what I did. It's about what it led to. The most powerful enlightenment drug in the world that proves you have supernatural power organically. And we teach it organically, our natural process. It's called the Great Resurrection and the crossover humanity back into their spirituality, into the primordial being. So they're not trapped in mentality, in a personality, right, with IQ behavior and just grammar, but thinking outside the mind and using 100% of your brain instead of only using 7 to 15, because God gave you that gift. Okay? You know, Christ said, you do not know what you're doing here. And he was right. And that's what we found out in the biggest study we've done. We can do what Christ can and more in the same genetic process. We all have the same ability, right, to use our genetic memory. And we're all coded with exactly the same DNA in the 24th chromosome, and it's in dormancy. We have to cross over. That's what the great crossover is all about, from 220 to 227. Okay, the most powerful confirmation on earth. And that's what I come with. The most powerful evidence ever created in modern history, right? Biblical prophecy to the land of my date of birth for these reasons, with these dates. Because I'm the witness chosen, I'm the Son of Christ. And no one believes in it. Well, you've got the same genetic process. So that's your business, not mine. I chose to allow the celestial primordial being to control my vessel. Okay? So I'm not living in my flesh and blood or in my mind anymore. Okay? So the celestial primordial being that you will not know who I am controls my vessel, controls my mind, controls what I say, not me. Okay? I woke up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap. And I was put through that path for a reason, for the Great Awakening, right? And to that, without deceiving people. It's a crossover. It's going back into your spirituality, back in your primordial state, in your primordial being. Christ was a primordial being. He didn't live inside his vessel, in his mind. He said, think outside the mind, and you can do everything I can and more if you follow my footsteps. Go back to your childhood. Repent means go back. And Christ in 40 days went walkabout without eating. He went fasting without eating anything. Okay? He was brought up a certain way. He first learned reincarnation and life after life. Then he was taught by Tibetan monks and Buddhists how to use the gut feeling survival mode, the chakra, the very preservation mode for life. That activates two-minded mentality. Okay? The ship in your spine, Jacob's ladder. Jacob's ladder is a ship in your spine. That activates your Neuralink. Your tree of life inside you is Jacob's ladder. That activates your body cells. And you feel high as a kite. Naturally high, right? And you pump with adrenaline, right? Called adrenochrome. That's a sacred secretion. And when that's pumped, it's like a meth effect. Alert, alive, awake and aware with clarification. You see that in the movie Limitless with the drug that we developed. To use 100% of your brain and also using the vortex of information with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge. Because a new timeline we're coming into, you'll find in the book of Enoch and in the Ethiopian Bible and the original Bibles. It's a timeline of sevenfold wisdom and knowledge. It's removed from the Western Bibles, but it's in every other Bible in the world. And we have timelines. We're in the timeline deception for 700 years. And we're in the last 7 years from 220 to 227 on the New York climate clock in a 2-minute video. The 7-year countdown between 220 and 227. The clock will be displayed to the 27th September. And that's exactly 2,000 years from the day that Christ was baptized by John on the 27th September 27 when he was 31. 4 days later, he was at Jacob's well, and he first announced he was a Messiah and told the Sumerian woman about a past and a 5 husbands 20 years before he was born. In deja vu, we can tell the past and the future in a time when time stands still and life preserves. He knew everybody. And he knew the future. He knew his own future. So he could use deja vu and told the lady about the 5 husbands 20 years before he was born. And she was in shock at Jacob's well. Now, you're told in the Bible, post-human stage, right? And celestial ancestral beings will come back, right? Born before post-human stage. Born before post-human stage that will leave their mark on earth. They will write their books that unfold with evidence, and their history will precede them. You will know who these people are, the elect. They will leave their mark on earth. They will write books that unfold with evidence of their history, so their history speaks for themselves. But they will dedicate themselves to save humanity in the great resurrection of humanity and the crossover. That's what they're designed to do. They're designed to help humanity in DNA declare the book of life. The last book to read in the Bible is the book of life. DNA is the book of life with genetic memory and a genetic process. The blood of the lamb. Follow the woman's seed, the 24th chromosome in dormancy. You'll see it in cellular study research. You do have 24 chromosomes, but we're living in 23, the seed of the dragon, because we're living in mentality, in personalities, trapped inside our mind. And that's what the problem is. We can only 7 to 15% of our brain in the highest IQ people in the world. Well, I can use 100%, declared by the biggest think tank in the world. Number one, primordial being by the biggest think tank and a 34-year study with supernatural power, superhuman abilities in their study. The most confronting human being they've ever dealt with. By the biggest think tank in the Star Champion Group. The gatekeeper, that's me. The gatekeeper report, I am the gatekeeper of the people with godlike power. Out of all the research done on their documents, not my writing, theirs. In a 16 years DNA study done, I've got the most authentic DNA in the world with divine power and divine intervention with hospital records to back it up. And you don't need to worry about this because you can do the same thing if you follow the same footsteps. You can do everything Christ can and more like I can with solid evidence. I brought someone back to life in 1992 with 7 peer reports. CCTV, she wrote the most powerful poem in 2003, the one and only, worldwide #1 for 8 months. They interviewed her, and what she said was astonishing. But it proves to you how Christ works inside my vessel with the divine power of bringing someone back to life. With 7 peer reports, CCTV, and the most powerful poem written in 2003, the one and only, worldwide #1 for 8 months. That should be solid evidence for you. 1992, I'm King Boss on the front page of paper at 32 years old. At the same age, in 1992, when Kirsty Ashley died in Ipswich Hospital 4 times and given 0% chance of living, but she lives to tell the story and write the most powerful poem. Now, 1994, I'm in 17 current affairs shows as a mastermind of loopholes of laws and manipulation because I knew how to unravel everything. A mastermind manipulation, and I knew how to unravel the whole law and order documents, the chaos documents, and the artificial intelligence right through education that makes your body so it's going corruption going to do it in the daytime. It can only be at nighttime in your mind. Voltage reliability in your DNA aura is anti-clockwise in 98.7%. Only clockwise in 1.3%. Only clockwise in 1.3%. They are spiritual people that controls the best of them from the outside in. The rest are controlled by their mind, in their personality, in mentality, and do not know what they do in their mind with an IQ, artificial intelligence, evolution mutation by atheism, anti-clockwise, that can only live in their mind. Those people know real moral good and shame. They have no codependent in tune to power. And that's your EMP pulses in your DNA with 27 biofields. You have 32 senses, but you're living in 5 sense mentality, and you can only think instinctively 1 to 5%. And your aura's only working 3.5 hours a night in 98.7%. Mental disorders and DDPs are going through the roof from 2% in 1960 to 98% today. Okay, the world's on more drugs and drug pandemics than ever in global history. And stress, fear and anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion and paranoia. And the biggest communication breakdown ever in global history with the greatest psychological warfare you've ever seen in your history. Right? People dividing with their family and friends. Can't even keep them together in their basic common sense anymore because they don't have any. They judge and judge each other. Mental behavior, actors, Hollywood spinners, American dreamers all over the world on screens all day with artificial intelligence in a 5 sense world, living on a screen 8 hours average a day, consuming all the wrong products, do not know what they do with 100,000 different unnatural selections with inflection points that are beyond the point of return. We're going into 6 mass extinction strip in the 6th sense for the 6th time. You're watching animals go around in circles all over the earth, birds falling out the sky, and some of them get vertigo and get their bearing back, some die. Fish going around circles in the oceans, magnetic shift pulse changing the whole planet, the shaman, volcanoes blowing everywhere. And you still live in denial? You can live in all denial you like, but believe me, it's already happened. The 250 million warned in the Bible, the army, was the Extinction Rebellion that shut the capital cities down worldwide in 2019 of 335 million people. That's why we created the time traveler of 227, who stands in those locations where there's no one there, empty, an actor, right, with visions and dreams. Okay, 227, time traveler from 2,000 years ago. 27, Holy Spirit, divine light, book Revelation 27. That's me. That's who I am. Okay, I'm Archangel Michael. I'm the Father, the Son, all in one. You may not believe that, but you're not chosen for this. You were declared posthumous stage on my birthday, 27 September 99, the day after the 26th, and the first G20. Posthumous stage, then you're crazy. You're declared as species 9 2003, suffering delusional parasitosis. Now we know those parasites are 98.7% bullish reliability anti-clockwise, and their body cells can corrupt collusion during the daytime and can only appear at nighttime in every Western civilization in the world. 1,000 to 7,000 depicted genes in each and every one of them. Okay, they've been following the wrong footsteps in their mentality. And that's the forefathers' footsteps that they follow. The 23rd seed, the seed of the dragon. And no matter what they say, grammar won't get them out of this. Religious, political cults and New Age have all failed because they do not know what they do. They all think they do, but they don't. They think with their mind, with their IQ behavior, and raising their consciousness, which is a mental event, a mental process, an illusion, imagination with IQ. It's only 5 cents in negative fields. And everyone's living their consciousness and thinks there's such thing as a Christ mentality. Christ consciousness mentality, a delusion, an illusion, an imagination running wild from the 5 sense world with the 5D world that's light, power, deceiving, demonic in the book of Enoch for a reason, because it's only a personality, and it'll tell you whatever you want to believe in. And now people believe in their own truth, manifest their own truth, and come to their own conclusion with reason, with science, because they're educated to be competitive. So they can compete with their parents and call them dinosaurs as they reject the genetic process and put their 24th chromosome in dormancy and think they're intelligent at the same time and lost all their abilities because their spirituality's gone. They sold that out for mentality, no matter what they say. 99% of people on a screen are just actors. They're actors for someone else because they can only 7 to 15% of their brain. Only those that can use their mind and master their mind and use 100% of their brain are not actors, they're messengers. There's only a handful left in the world. In the biggest DNA study done, as Jeremy Griffith says, number 1 bowlers in the whole world, with 16,000 top scholars who hails the book Freedom, the Holy Grail of life, the most powerful declaration ever made in life, okay? And we're not breathing as one Nobel Prize to recreate the sacred secretion and the holy breath of life, okay, to restart the Neuralink and sacred secretion, has won a Nobel Prize without a credential. The Holy Breath of Life, and the Holy Grail of Life, the book Freedom, right? DNA, the book of life. To go through every rabbit hole and stick your head at the cave, as Plato describes in 15 books. Okay, why a certain family tree and a certain bloodline could do every single thing like these apostles can, and more, like Christ. And why couldn't anyone else? And why did they suffer the human conditioning? Why did they have serpents in their mind? Why would they all argue, debate, and divide the whole lot and think they're better than everyone else? No one is family with the naked drunks that smash into the nation with confusion frustrations, with different languages and cults, with religious political behaviour, the naked drunks, the white Western civilization. You see that in the book of Enoch. Enoch wrote 100 books about this that's been suppressed from you. He saved the Australian Aborigines, the double Y, double X chromosome, 24 chromosome, who's been living by the natural laws of life for hundreds of thousands of years. And they know every genetic process. They don't have amnesia. 450 years old. 10 feet tall, and they're real. The most compassionate human beings on earth and the most spiritual can levitate of 1 ton stone, and nature bends down to talk to them. They grow 10 times more fruit with 10 times more nutritious value because they bear the right fruit. Their aura is so powerful when you stand near them, you'll break down and cry. The love will pour all over you. And they're in the Christ image, the last human beings born on earth. With DNA studies done. The last Christ image. The last human beings born in Christ's image. And they're saving us. They are saving us. Believe me, I was put down this path for a reason. I was put down this path for a very powerful reason. Okay? Very few people know these people. They have a sixth sense so powerful that they're calling from miles away. You know, when I met these people, my wife got sick one day. She was 3,000 kilometres away. I rang up 8 o'clock in the morning. I said, hey, what's wrong? I got a bad gut feeling. She said, oh, I just threw up in the toilet. How did you know? I said I felt it and I could see it. Codependent feelings is really powerful. You can see that in George Clooney when they're steering the goats. He gets a codependent feeling from his mate in Iraq, halfway across the planet. Then he goes there with the remote viewing. He finds out where he is. So with remote viewing, he goes there. And with feelings, he feels the truth. When you feel the truth, and you're not living in your mind, you have massive abilities. Massive abilities. Because the vortex of information is something you feel through the light bulb here. The picture that tells you 1,000-word dimensional thinking, remote viewing, mental telepathy, ESP. And this is where your supernatural power is, in your primordial state. Keanu Reeves in the Matrix, right? He's in another dimension, right? And he controls his vessel from the outside in, not the inside out. He's not trapped in his mind with amnesia, okay? He learned reincarnation and life after life. And the first thing he said after the 40-day test, at 24 years old, when he discovered who he was, he said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham. So he had his genetic memory. And that genetic memory is the same blood of the Lamb that goes in our DNA. It's in all our DNA. Every single one of us from the tree of life. And when you understand the tree of life and you select correctly, you have the same genetic process to do what Christ can and more, and it'll be a puzzle. Jeremy Griffiths tells you this on the World Transformation Movement. We can all do what Christ can and more. So it's not isolated for one person only. It's all of us. We have a genetic memory and a genetic process that's not being used because we don't know how to. Because we're not living in spirituality in a primordial state. We're living in a personality, in our mentality, and we're trapped into it. And we don't even believe in it. Most people are beyond the point of return. Right? They'll never get it back. And that's the whole point here. That's why this is the most critical, most powerful testimony in the world. Because we bring people back in their primordial state. We cross them over. And the crossover ends on the 27th September 227. That is the point of no return. That's the inflection point. 2,000 years when Christ was baptized by John to the day. And scholars know that. The Vatican knows that. Okay, Kim Clement predicted in 2013, the end date, 227. They saw it in the looking glass. They built military underground bunkers. They're going underground. Okay, the CERN shuts down. You can go and Google this. A lot of things happens in 227. So they're prepared for it. They saw it in the looking glass. No matter how you choose to look at this, that's the end date of the inflection point of no return. And I'm telling you, it's the sixth mass extinction being stripped from the sixth sense for the sixth time. And if you can work that out yourself, you must be in your instinctive behavior and think instinctively to tune out of the program, as I tell you in the Matrix, for a reason. Because it's true. It's true. I developed the most powerful enlightenment drug ever known to mankind. Christ and Moses used bread manna from the plant called Mei Hung. And it's an enlightenment drug. It's a tree of life. There's another plant, right, they use in the Vatican and in many other places. A mushroom. You may have heard videos about this. Okay, it's a tree of knowledge. A mushroom. Very heavy psychedelic effect. It's a tree of knowledge. It's a known fact. Mei Hung is a tree of life, and no one tells you that. That's what's used in Mei Hung, right? Is what's used in bread manna. And bread manna is a conductor to life. It's also the sacred secretion that you create yourself, but it doesn't work. That's the whole point. You're not spirituality, you're mentality. Your third eye, you can see things that's beyond the mind. To look at Bruce Lee by 24. You could fight 12 year back karate blindfolded and block every single punch. 7 times faster people could think critically in their conscious mind. They were using body and face expression. And then their eyes are windows of the soul when the third eye is broken and they're disconnected and gave consent to someone else. No matter what they say, no matter what comes out of their mouth, they can't justify this one. They can't use their grammar or text their way out of this. They have to cross over back in their primordial state so they control their vessel and they control yin and yang. That's what the crossover is. That's what represents when Christ, you know, people talk about the cross coming to talk to Christ with 2 angels, 2 servants. The crossover means you stick your head through the light in the tunnel. That's what it means, as Plato describes in 15 books. As a top scholar's been educated with and been studying for 45 years with DNA studies done. Sticking your head through the light in the tunnel, as Jeremy Griffiths says, right? At the end of the tunnel, the end of the cave. You live in a long dark cave in here You do not know what you're doing here. Look at the movie Limitless. He takes manna and boomfa. He gets a massive clarification and uses 100% of his brain, and you see the vortex of information in the movie and outside influence. He writes a book overnight that's brilliant. He goes down to Wall Street and makes millions of dollars and even flips the eyes on the entrepreneurs, the Wall Street entrepreneurs. They're like, what's he doing, man? You know, who is this guy? Where does he come from? You get what I'm saying? It's a movie, of course. It's a Hollywood spin. But I'm telling you the metaphor. As the biggest mastermind, the biggest documents in the world, and the most authentic DNA ever recorded in the whole world, with divine intervention, divine power, I should know. Of course I know, because God made it that way. But pastors, preachers, and Christians throw stones at me, don't want to know, which is astonishing. When God develops the most powerful confirmation, I'm born on the 27th of September 1960, stands for King of all kings, metal rat. 3 different signs. God created the most powerful confirmation on earth through CCTV and border security, the most sophisticated system in the world, on my son and my grandson's birthday, both on the 27th as well. Book Revelation 27 is a sign. And everything's dated on the 27th. The end of the new climate clock, 2/27, 27 September. Okay, posthumous stage, 27 September. Last human being born is me on DNA studies done, right, with a book that unfolds with evidence, predicting everything perfectly. And that's become the solid evidence. The testimony of reborn. It's absolute solid evidence now. Cannot be discredited by anyone. Impossible. I predicted everything perfectly since I wrote that book, and it unfolded perfectly. So therefore, it's become solid evidence, no matter what anybody thinks or says. No matter what. Pastors and preachers don't even care, but it's solid evidence. It's become solid evidence. I cannot lie. And I cannot lie about anything with the evidence that's created, right? You have to watch these 10 videos of completion, 1 to 10. The book of Numbers in the Bible. Information that nobody else in the world is giving you is in these 10 videos. And 3 of the most powerful testimonies. And I need to pay attention, because if you don't, you won't know. It's as simple as that. If you're arrogant, rude, and ignorant, it's your problem, not mine. You have no spirituality and you have no faith, because your aura is gone. You come to your conclusion with reasoning, and reasoning is the age of nefarious, because it's 5 senses of negative fields. It's not mild guilt and shame. It's not thinking instinctively outside the mind. It's thinking with the mind and coming to your own conclusion with reasoning by design, by atheism design, in your mind. That's why mental disorder and defects are going through the roof. And accelerating cancer, black clot, myocarditis, stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia, and a massive global communication breakdown. And everyone's sitting on a screen all day, disconnected from family, loves, and friends the most. There's no codependent power, no codependent relationships. There's no soulmate relationship, because the soul is sold out worldwide. And don't even believe in it. They've got no genetic memory. They're 24 chromosomes in dormancy. They can't use 85 to 93% of the brain. They can't use 27 of their biofields. And they still live in denial. A species of denial cleared 2003. A total denial. Most people are a species of denial, no matter what they say. They're living in their mind with book-smart education, and they believe in grammar and literal behaviour and psychological behaviour, but they have no real faith. That's why their aura is anti-clockwise, because they think anti-clockwise in their mind. That's why their body sense corrupts illusion during the daytime, and they're dying prematurely, said by FDA, getting younger and younger all the time. And mental disorders and defects are going through the roof. And now 77% of children are born, right, with chronic disease in America, worldwide, in all Westerners. Right? Autism from 10,000, 1 out of every 10,000, down to 1 out of every 31. 1 out of every 31. Mental disorders going through the roof. Toxic poisoning and unnatural selections, and what they shove down their throat, and what they listen to in a 5 sense world, in a 5D world, with light power, deceiving and demonic, with radio waves, with principality and the power in the air that controls them, with the mind control. They don't even believe in it. They gave consent to the boogeyman, the monster bed. They tell their parents it's just a dream, so they can be possessed by it, so they can't use the natural process. We showed that on videos, right, on YouTube. Third eye children, superhumans. 0 to 7, they're perfect aura, perfect abilities. They can mastermind a computer game between 3 and 7 and respond 7 times faster than any adult with 210 IQ, using 15% of his brain, because a child can use 100%, like the movie Limitless. He's born with it. So we show you on this video that at 8 years old, they can read, draw, and write. Read, draw, and write blindfolded, like Bruce Lee. And they always could. With their third eye and their sixth sense, they can read, draw, and write. So when they feel the truth, they know what they're doing. By 12 years old, they've got remote viewing. They can predict things can't come around the corner what colour it is. So they can't get ran by it. For Brahma and the system to create a market strategy. So they can't predict and prevent. That's how Brahma and the whole system set you up. So you can't predict and prevent. But a child can at 12 years old. He can predict and prevent. A child who always had disabilities, which means the parents push them into school to become mentally institutions like they are. So parents push them into school to become mentally institutionalized by the boogeyman and lie to their kids like they do, right? So now they're possessed, right, with the voices in their mind, ultimately designed for extinction. That's only personalities. And they believe in themselves with the voice of mind when they think critically. But they do not know what they do because they're possessed. And they lost all their natural abilities. A child at 12 years old can predict who's ringing on your phone and what they're wearing in the other end, right, with remote viewing. All the way across the planet. All the way across the planet, 12 years old. Starts to ask deep and meaningful questions about the meaning of life that you know nothing about because you're living in the tree of knowledge by design with your grammar and what you depend on. And you know, the Bible warned you'll all be delusional, and now it's declared that 98.7% has delusional parasitosis in their body cells. They have all these reliabilities anti-clockwise, going corrupts collision in the daytime, with defective genes and defective mentality, with mental disorder and defects going through the roof, with stress and anxiety, and people living denial about the same time, on a screen all day, getting high and there's a blow with dopamines. Getting high and there's a blow with dopamines. But in real life, they can't connect with anybody. In real life, they've got no real relationships in real life. They've got no soulmates and faith in maybe 2 or 3 people in real life when you go home and understand who they really are. Everyone's just an actor on a screen. And you follow actors on a screen the most. You mentally resonate. You don't follow your codependent power. You don't follow your intuitive power. You don't follow your gut feeling. You don't think instinctively. You don't think outside the mind. You think with the mind. Now the mind controls you. You don't control yourself. Because if you were, you'd be able to do what I can and more. If you cross over. And that's why we teach the crossover in 40 days like Christ did. And go through a 3.5 year transformation. Which is amazing. Freedom beyond the mind. The liberation. It's unbelievable. Because you get back 10 times more power. 10 times more clarification. You see things you've never seen before in your life. They'll make sense to you. Right? You'll find things you never ever realized even existed. You'll see and understand things you never could. And for the first time in your life, you'll get the biggest clarification where nothing in the world can ever get you again. Freedom, beyond the mind, the crossover, judgment. It's judgment. You cross over in 40 days, you'll never go back. Take the red pill, stick your head at the light in the cave, where the sun's light shining the other side, and the grass light green, as Plato describes, 10 times more powerful, where you get the clarification like when you die and cross over and you don't want to come back. You see the future. And I'll take you out of your vessel in 40 days by following my instructions. Okay? Don't eat for 40 days. Take sick iron, magnesium, vitamin C, D12. Drink salicylic salt. Drink lots of water, liquid. You can have tea and coffee, but don't eat. Get off screens and radio waves. Isolate. As little conversation as possible. Do not interact. Mind your own business. Get into yourself. Go back in your innocence. Go back to your childhood. Repent. Go backwards. Think backwards. Revise your life over 40 days. Listen to the book Freedom by Jeremy Gibbs audio. Listen very carefully, and it'll take you through this. I promise you. It will take you through the light of the end tunnel. Okay? Do we're not breathing every day to recreate the second excretion and restore the holy breath of life. And the Neuralink, Jacob's ladder, with also genetic memory of 130 nucleosome molecules and genetic repair kit. It crosses over when you do meditation, right? You do at least 6 sets of We're Not Breathing on YouTube, right? It's won an overprice to recreate the second excretion and restore the holy breath of life. Restore your Neuralink. And what it does is exactly that. Restores your whole immunity system, okay? And makes it strong and goes for natural selection. As you unleash all the unnatural selection and get rid of all the parasites. And that's what you're doing. You're doing a parasitic clean out. Take febendazole 222 milligrams at the same time. daily, right? It'll help you a lot. Plenty of vitamin C, strong vitamin C, the real deal. Okay, trust me. You'll get rid of a parasite in 40 days and stop eating. Don't eat for 40 days. And then you find out your voices in your mind will become your worst enemy and mine at the same time and try to reject me. And then you realize you're carrying the enemy, my enemy. You'll know that because the voice in mind will turn against me. And that happens to everybody. The voices in your mind turns against me that told you to do this. And you'll realize that. How the demons inside your mind and will turn against me and tell you anything. And then you realize you're possessed by your own personality and your own mentality. And you'll see it for the first time as an innocent child, back in your primordial state, back in your spirituality. And then you'll realize, oh my God. And it's a massive wow factor. And it'll leave you speechless and dumbfounded. But you feel the most powerful love at the same time. And you'll go through an inflection point, like a death experience, where all of a sudden, right, in deep meditation with your eyes closed, you see with your sixth sense, because your eyes closed, it's the darkness, they'll take you through the pillar of salt, Jacob's ladder, to the light of the end tunnel, right? And then you'll get an experience where you'll get removed from your vessel and go to the light of the end tunnel, and wow, you'll feel the most powerful confirmation you could ever imagine of love pouring all over you and most powerful divine intervention. And you go through the rebirth and realize, my God, my vessel's back here and I'm not even in it, in my human experience, in my personality. Just like you die, a death experience, but your personality's dying, but you're still in control, right? But you're getting your bearings out of whack, right? You feel very uncomfortable at the same time, but you feel love at the same time, and you'll go through this, a transformation. And this transformation may take you a while. Some take 3.5 years, but it's a genetic transformation and a natural selection. You start to use natural selection. You start to alter every single decision you ever made in your life, and you reject the ones you used to make. That goes for food and cooking, the whole lot. You realize that you're more conscious about what you're doing, and your consciousness is more aware of the outside influence that controls your reality, and your consciousness, right, starts to go in balance with you. And the voices inside your mind of yin and yang is the two serpents, the two angels in the crossover. When you cross over, you take control of your vessel and you take control of yin and yang and all the voices tell you what to do. You start to realize now, and through this transformation, you'll get information from out of the blue. Out of the blue. The light bulb idea. The picture that tells you 1,000 words that can lie to you. And trust me, it'll come to you. And as you go through a beautiful transformation, a magnificent process, you can see my followers and their testimonies on my platforms. Please listen to their testimonies, because they can help you with this. I've done this for many years on the streets. People on social media platform, only one out of about 1,000 will make a video. Okay, only 5% to 10% will even text. And you have to understand those statistics. Most people will not make a video. But I've got thousands of people on shadow ban here. I'm the most shadow banned person in the world, the most rejected in society. But I've got 1,000 people that's gone through the crossover and the rebirth. And you see many of my followers here and their testimonies, and many more coming right now. They're going through this right now. There's several of them coming through lately, and they just haven't made videos, okay? So take that into account. Not everybody will make a video. Very few people will. They're very shy of making videos. But watch the testimonies that are on my platforms. Because believe me, the Father doesn't want you to miss out, no matter who you are, where you come from, or what you believe in. The fact is this, on the 27th September 2027, it's the inflection point of no return. That's it. That's the end date. You don't cross over by that day. You go into a sixth magic extinction, stripping the sixth sense for the sixth time. And trust me, it's not going to be pretty around here. But what comes after is what you see in this porthole, the light at the end of the tunnel. You'll see the future in deja vu. You're going to see your own future. And when you see that future, you're saved. You can never go back. Right? That's when you stick your head through the light at the end of the tunnel. You'll never go back. You'll know who you are. And you'll feel like a complete child again. You'll still have all your memory, but you revise your perception about every single thing you ever come to learn. And you'll realize all the damage that that you're living at. And you're living a terrible human experience. And that's what you realize, no matter who you are, where you come from, you're living a terrible human experience, a terrible, terrible human experience. And you all are, every single one of you. But you are your own problem. Your problem is you, yourself, not everything else, right? You're missing the whole point. The whole problem is your own personality and your own mentality. And you've got damage, and damage because you've been carrying from ancestry tools with voice in your mind, a lot of damage, a lot of DNA damage, a lot of damage. You're carrying a lot of damage from generation to generation, right? Because you've been in amnesia so long. And you've never woken up from amnesia in the reincarnation trap. That's why you're carrying so much damage from the decisions that are made. And it's affecting everybody. This is why it's judgment. This is why it's by natural selection and natural order in life. If you don't get it this time, you're finished. It's the last opportunity. If you don't get it right this time, you're finished. Because you've had enough turns. And you're confused about all these things. And you don't know what you're doing in your mind. The mind doesn't know. And when you go through this, you will know things you never knew. You'll know what the knowing is all about. Not the believing psychology, not the literal behavior and book smart education, but you'll know. And there's a massive difference between knowing and only believing. A huge, huge difference. But you'll know. And once you know, you'll never let go. You'll never go back. You never go back in mentality and a personality ever again because you break free from it. And that's the liberation. Now you control your vessel. Now you'll control everything. Now you'll master your own mind and master your own vessel, and you'll make natural selection because you're in charge. For the first time in your life, there's not somebody else in charge of what you're doing, but you're in charge of yourself, and not a personality with stupid mentality and picking all the wrong products and all the wrong information and all the blah, 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 blah. Because that's what's fucking you up the ass so much. Yourself. Being into yourself too much and being trapped into self-centered ego and into a personality that doesn't even exist. It's all by design. Just to keep you trapped like this. So you do what you're told. Because those voices of mine, when you think critically, I'm telling you now, they can make 60% of people killed in 1900. Now they can make 100% of people killed. In COVID vaccination mandates, they can just about make anyone take it. Right? They've done a lot of studies on this. So the voice will eventually tell you what to do with pressure. And if you have your back up against the wall, most people give in and do what they're told. With the voice of mind when they tell them to do that. When they come to a conclusion with reasoning. You will always follow the system and do what you're told for money or whatever the reason is. You'll have a breaking point. And that breaking point will keep you doing what you're doing with everyone else. You just have different breaking points, that's all. Different stress, different balls, different courage. Okay, different men and women. But some people are a lot more powerful than others. And I stood against the whole goddamn system and went to the top level in the most corrupt case in Australian history by Chief Justice of Jersey, and the Prime Minister standing to me, you were in test, and government's authorities and voice, and a big government work in 2016, and they were over 80% positive meth. The same conductor. In every graphene oxide, in drug delivery system, methamphetamine, ADHD medication, and food preservatives. The same thing in a vaccination, and electronic medical device. And it's not about that. It's about your mentality. It's about what you're living in. Are you living in your mind, or are you living in spirituality, in your primordial being? It's not about any weapon that can form against you, because it can't. If you think outside the mind, no weapon formed against you can prosper. As the same in the Matrix, those who think instinctively tune out of the program. Then you're not in the program, in the mind. The mind is all program. The IQ behavior is all program. Right? Consciousness is a mental event, a mental process. It's an IQ. It's mental. Okay? It's an illusion of imagination because it's 5 senses, negative fields. It's not positive fields. That's 27 biofields, biosenses, and they're not working. So we restore them. We cross you back over in your spirituality, in your primordial state. Okay? And you go through a transformation. It's amazing. And nothing short of a massive miracle. And exactly what you're looking for in the crossover, in a new dimension where time stands still and life preserves to create heaven and earth. There'll be no more heaven and hell from that day. That's a deadline. There will be no more heaven and hell. Okay? It'll be heaven and earth. From that day onwards. That's the inflection point. And what will happen here, right? You can only imagine with your own wildest imagination. The buttons people push when they're going to panic attacks, it's as simple as this. It's going to 6 mass extinction strip in the 6th sense, 6th time. And those that think instinctively and think outside the mind is the sixth sense in spirituality. And they're the ones that goes through no matter what. No matter what people say. Shiloh masterminds and monks and Buddhists know this. They're the ones that taught Christ. That's why they know the best. They have the genetic memory. Right? The people in the church don't. Pastors and preachers don't. Christians do not have genetic memory. They do not use their ancestral tools. They do not use the 24th chromosome at all. It's in dormancy in every single Westerner across the world. And they can lie about all they like. They're in the 23rd seed. They're in the reptilian mentality. And they're trapped into it. There's only one way to cross over. And most people will not make it because they're too much into themselves. Self-centered. And every Westerner is very self-centered into themselves. And you should know better. You mentally resonate with people because you're mental. That's why you sit on the screen and you follow people on a platform that are mental. Not spirituality. Not celestial primordial beings that teach with any right tools at all. Because they do not know what they do. None of them do. There's no self-proclaimed prophet out there anywhere in the world teaching any right tools at all. Not one. Because they don't even know what they're doing. Not in their mentality, in their Hollywood spinning and their American, dreamers and actors. And that's all they are. You follow actors because you're an actor as well. You're acting for someone else. 98.7% is acting for someone else. And the boogeyman, the monster in the bed. And you can see that in the movie, The Green Mile, how the black fella represents a true Christ with the holy breath of life in raggedy clothes, wrapped in chains, always accused of what Westerns are guilty for. But he pulls nefarious with the holy breath of life right out of Tom Hanks, the nicest white person in there. And nefarious is in everybody. The boogeyman. That's why parents lie to their kids. And they're not like Bruce Lee to master their mind. Because they can't. They're mastered by the mind. So they lie to the kids and say it's just a dream. Because they go to school to be mentally seduced with the boy's mind, ultimately designed from extinction, declared by Jim McGillis and 16,000 top scholars and 45,000 teachers. We are listening to the wrong voice in the mind. And that's why John Revelation said, it's all in here. Hellfire's there, in the skull, in the mind. Everything's there. Right? And that's what we're telling you. It's all there, in the mind, in the skull, as John says in Revelation. It's not what you think. It's thinking outside the mind. Christ said, you do not know what you're doing here. Hellfire's in here. You're a dead corpse. That's why your body cells only work 3.5 hours a night, because you're a dead corpse during the daytime. You're in negative feels, living in a delusional state in a comfort zone. And it's all about yourself. And that's all you care about. And that's the fact of life that we're dealing with here today. This is what we're dealing with. Okay? In 98.7% anti-clockwise in their mind on artificial intelligence, by evolution mutation, by atheism. And that's the grammar of the select. And their EMP pulse, you can see what it is. It's not codependent and unit power with loyalty, honor, respect, moral morals, inspiration, encouragement. The 8 tools of righteousness. And every mastermind knows this. They can mastermind. The 8 quantum mechanics of a relationship. Because they have an outside divine intervention with divine power and they harness the power. And it's the divine power that commands nature in their own DNA. And we know that for a fact with DNA studies done, the Book of Life. So we bring you back to the Book of Life with your own genetic memory and your own genetic process through a 40-day fasting. We're not breathing program. Recreates the sacred secretion with the holy breath of life and reactivates the Neuralink. Okay? And all this sacred secretion and with natural selection. So for 40 days you go through this. Some go a second time, straight away for another 7-8 days, but they all get there. It's available to everyone. And when you cross over, it's an uncomfortable experience, but a liberation. One that you've only ever dreamt about. And that's what it becomes. The most powerful love starts to pour over you. You feel your body cells high as a kite. And you feel alert, alive, awake and aware with the most powerful clarification. You see things and feel things and understand things you never have done before in your life. And it'll come to you out of the blue with a vortex of information, with 7-fold wisdom knowledge, a universal language with coded pen and feelings, and that's a two-way street. That's a relationship you must have. You must bring the source, the Father, the prime creator, Christ himself, into your heart, into your chakra, into your Neuralink, into your body cells. And when you live by the wine yard weekly to learn how to love one another, burdens and flesh, your body cells does exactly the same thing When you go into natural selection and innocent and gone back in your primordial state in your inner sense to be selfless, you start to make a genetic process and live by the vineyard rule equally and learn to love one another in flesh the same way Christ told you at his last meal. These are his own commandments. The laws of life, the tree of life, is living by the vineyard weekly and loving one another in flesh. That's the whole laws of life, of the tree of life. You live by it, by that relation, by equality like this, and you all go back into primordial state. Right? You cross over and go through the most powerful influence, which is your own judgment in this 40 days. And when you cross over, you are saved. I save your soul. I save your soul. You are saved in that moment. Then you go for a transformation to control your vessel. You start to control your vessel completely differently. You start to go to natural selection and you're now in charge of yourself for the first time. Now you're the crossover talking back to yourself. You become the universe that talks to yourself. Like in Keanu Reeves, he controls his vessel from the outside. You become the controller of yourself. Like your own God, right? Okay, like your own God, like you now know every single thing about this. And then you go for a transformation, which is a cosmic laws of life, cosmic universal language, where things come out of the blue, right, with dimensional thinking and pictures, right, pictures. They'll tell you 1,000 words and you put all the pieces together and the puzzle starts to unravel. And every single thing in your life unravels and you realize, my God, I had no idea what I was doing in here. And then you have the greatest understanding and feel it. You feel everything. You feel everything with sensitivity, right? With clarification. And you see things and you feel things like you never had before. You feel love pouring all over you. You feel radio waves. You feel, oh, wow. And you go into like a meth effect, like, and that's the feeling you get. It really gets high, right? And it's a balance, right? And you go through a process, right? And transformation to get more used to it and more used to it and more used to it and more used to it. And it gets higher and higher and higher, so far beyond the mind. It goes to higher levels. It goes through a transformation and your body can't take it in one go. Your body can't take it, trust me. You go through transformation in your DNA. You feel things in your body you never felt before in your life. You go through things in your life and your mind that will change in ways that's never changed before and it's beyond explanation. But you alter, right, into something extraordinary that you've never been before and you're like, holy crap, man. What is this? What am I going through here? Because the mind doesn't know. And the mind gets paranoid, right? The mind gets a little bit crazy sometimes, right? And you think, fuck, man, what's going on here, man? What is this? I've never had this experience before in my life. The rebirth, right, is one extraordinary moment by itself, right? That's so confronting it's not funny. But going through the transformation is a whole different way of thinking. It's not what you think. It's a universal connection. It's feeling things and it's sensitivity. And sensitivity is what we're suffering from, but we're living in our mind. And when we live in the mind, it has the worst adverse effect. When we live outside the mind, it's wow, and the power, right? It's the frequencies changing on the planet, right? We're going into our sixth sense. We're going into our spirituality, and holy crap. It's the best way to say it. Holy crap. And what comes to you is magnificent stuff. It's the greatest time to be alive. Imagine being in the most primordial being state, right? The most loving, compassionate, the most everything, 10 times more powerful than anything you ever felt, and 10 times more high than anything you ever felt. Just imagine, higher than any drug or magnet love. I'm serious. Put every great feeling in the same basket. Will not compare with this, but it's a transformation. You can't deal with it in one go. The mind thinks something bad's going on. The mind gets paranoid about this. The mind goes through, right? Right? And that's affecting people in different ways. Okay, it depends on their own mentality. But the crossover is absolutely unbelievable and beyond words can explain. And that's why it's difficult to explain. You must go through this yourself. You must go through this experience. The mind cannot understand it all. The mind is so limited to this, it's incredible. We are so back to front, we don't even know. We don't even know. And when you cross over, you know, and you think, my God, nobody else actually knows this, and you understand something yourself. I never read the Bible in my life, right? But the first thing I felt going through this was, oh my God, the only thing I know about this that I can even relate to is the most powerful thing I've heard throughout my life. Christ always saying, you do not know what you're doing here. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do, when he's being stoned, right? And criticized by everyone. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And it comes to you automatically. And that inflection point is so powerful, it turns you straight into knowing what this is. I never read the Bible when this happened to me. When I went through this experience myself, when I died in 2012 and went through a transformation, right, the moment that I had, when I was chosen myself through the most powerful divine intervention with the most powerful backed up documents and most powerful evidence ever created in my history, that day, what I went through was unbelievable. And there are no words that can express this. There really isn't. I was removed from my vessel, taken into the future, right? Like I was dead, but I wasn't. I was wide awake. And what an experience. And then to float into the future through the light and the inner tunnel as if you die. I've been dead 3 times. This happened in broad daylight, wide awake. So I'm familiar with it. Very familiar with it. Where people die and cross over and come back. Been there myself. But this time, it was in broad daylight. Taken straight out of my vessel. Through the light bulb over here, the light bulb over there, the light bulbs in the porthole. And woof, I'm gone. My spirit was lifted right out into the light inner tunnel, into another dimension, into a parallel world, into the future. What's going to happen here in the future? Now, I'm telling you right now, the visions I had here, I've had followers all over the world for 5 years, having visions and dreams where they pray, and they saw exactly the same vision with me, in the same vision that I saw. I'm leading heaps of people, all right? And we're looking back through the porthole, back at this world. I'm looking back, and they're all standing behind me, and they're looking at me in the back of my neck. I turn around, I just see the people there. I can't see their faces. But they're coming to me all over the world through vision and dreams and said, hey, you're the one I saw in my dream. Because they were led down that path, and God showed them. Right? And people that goes in the tunnel for this 40-day test are told by God, the Father, he's using my vessel to take them through this. That's what they're saying in all the testimonies, that I'm the one taking them through this, and the Father's using my vessel. That's their own statements and their own testimonies. Okay? You can have some faith in this, that we're teaching the correct tools of the resurrection, and that's all that matters. And I protect the elect, the most powerful on earth. Mastermind Xing, to harness the power. When I breathe in program, the Holy Breath of Life. Okay, Jeremy Givers, here's the baptism of the DNA to cross over. Believe me, with 16,000 top scholars, the Holy Grail of Life and the Holy Breath of Life, you can't get a more powerful confirmation. And the crossover end date is the 27th September. That's the inflection point of no return. And I'm just here to save your soul, man, from your own personality and cross you over before it's too late. Okay? Many people here, it's going to have to be over 1,000 years old, I can guarantee it. It's already happening. In DNA studies done. 1.3% of the population has crossed over. Okay? Has crossed over. Their DNA is clockwise, repairing 24 hours a day. And many of those people is going to have to be 1,000 years old. It's a known fact. And if you want to go into this, and you want to be saved, I suggest you do what I do what I teach here, practice what I preach, and you'll know. You'll get the most powerful confirmation, the most powerful feeling, the most powerful love, but above all, the most powerful confirmation, and you'll be saved. So put yourself through this. It's available to everyone. Don't get it wrong. Don't fail. Don't fail. There's no need to.